I gotta say, I have great followers and commenters. I appreciate you. I really do. Very supportive, very encouraging, almost all positive comments. Almost. Which is kind of surprising since YouTube is not historically known for its elevated discourse. But negative comments on my channel are rare. I was 12 videos in before someone called me a 19 before somebody told me that I like a. There was that one comment that said I like to which is kind of true, at least it was back in college. Anyway, the most common criticism I get is that I'm ruining a classic. They say stuff like, why would you ruin a classic? And another classic Jag ruined by ego. This guy thinks I'm going senile, but he called my car a Jad. This guy hopes I die. I get a lot of similar comments about my Honda S600. I don't think I'm ruining these vehicles, obviously, or I wouldn't be doing this stuff. But I think what I'm doing is better for the overall car culture, even for people who appreciate cars that are totally stock. I appreciate all aspects of car culture, well, most of them, even the weird ones like donks and stance. This is not an opinion universally shared. A lot of people get really upset when you ruin a car. Ruin in this context means doing anything to make the car different than it was when it came off the factory line. These people and I don't get along. I don't like them because they like to draw a line about what is and isn't acceptable for somebody else to do. They don't like me because I have a hacksaw and a welder, both of which I use with the restraint of a coked up chimpanzee at the farmer's market. These ruining arguments seem to fall into one of two camps. There is the you're ruining the look of a car and the you're ruining the soul of a car. The latter takes issue with the electric powertrain going into what was an internal combustion car. I appreciate internal combustion engines. I've spent a considerable portion of my life and a chunk of my career building and designing them. I get it. I could buy an old Omega watch, pull out the mechanical bits, and replace them with the innards of a $10 quartz watch, and that new watch would be better at being a watch quantitatively. Qualitatively, a lot of people would disagree. Here's the difference. For one, I think electric powertrains are pretty cool. Maybe in 25 years, when they are as common and mundane as a $10 quartz watch, then you could lament the loss of the old mechanical engine with its dozens of finely crafted moving parts. But for now, I think it's just getting a different, unique personality. I also think there's a big opportunity to save a lot of old cars that would be otherwise unsalvageable, especially when you consider swapping in the entire subframe and suspension with brakes like I did. Also, frankly, if someone did take an old mechanical watch and swap in some quartz movement, I think that would be interesting. I'd watch that video. I'd watch that watch video. Interestingly, nobody has an issue with the fact that I've swapped the brakes. In fact, multiple people who have owned this car have warned me about the stock brakes. Apparently, every stop is a panic stop. There's also that group of people who think I'm ruining the look of the car, which I understand. A lot of people like the look of the Mark V, and they think it will be less attractive if I chop the top down a couple of inches and put some Tesla Aero wheels on it. I respect your opinion, and I disagree. Look at that roof line. Look how high it is from the belt line. It just needs to be a little bit shorter. Just a little bit. I might not actually do this, I haven't decided yet. I also get that people don't like the idea of using the Tesla Aero wheels. Some people don't like the way they look. I do, and I think they look better on this car than they do on the Tesla. But really only if it has the Tesla powertrain. If this car had originally come with wire wheels like the Mark IV did, I would definitely use those. But I don't really love the stock Steelies with hubcaps. I think it would look pretty great with some steel Bassett wheels, but that would piss off an entirely different group of people. This is all to say that people have different opinions about what does and doesn't look good. Barring a few exceptions, there is no accounting for taste. I respect that people disagree with me, and I like to read those comments. What I don't like to read is comments from people who think their opinion is the true objective opinion. I say I think the E-Type looks like a tongue, and people get angry. Not I disagree, but you're wrong and bad, and I hope you die in a car fire. They say stuff like, Enzo Ferrari said it was the most beautiful car ever made. Here's the cool thing about automotive design. You don't have to listen to what Enzo Ferrari thinks, and you certainly don't have to listen to what I think. You can form your own opinion. You can like or not like something for really no reason at all. You can say that you don't like the way the E-Type looks, and when somebody asks why, you don't have to say that the hood is a foot too long behind the wheels and the fenders are too bulbous, making it look like house slippers for a clown. You can just say, because I don't like it. Some people are upset that I'm doing anything different at all. These are the every car must be restored to its original glory people. I do love restored vehicles. I really do. I love that people take the care to restore old cars because I like going into a museum and seeing what a Cadillac looked like 100 years ago. I don't really have the patience for this sort of stuff, nor do I have the attention to detail or really the desire to do it. If I want to see what a 1964 Honda S600 looked like coming off the factory floor, or what a Jaguar Mark V looked like in 1950, there are plenty of places that I can go see them, not the least of which is the internet, which has thousands of pictures and videos. Hey look, it's me. I don't really have a desire to do what somebody else has already done, and I don't really see the point in doing something that hundreds or thousands of people have already done. Some people love to do that, and more power to them, really. I wish more people would buy old Mark Vs and S600s and restore them, because both of these cars are underappreciated. Not unappreciated, but definitely underappreciated. Less so with the Honda in recent years. It has gained a lot of popularity since I bought mine 10 years ago. Back then, very few people gave a shit about these cars. The one I bought had been on sale for almost 6 months before I bought it for $1,700. Now, if you really wanted to save this car, you could have bought it. Anybody had 6 months to save up $1,700 to buy this car. But you didn't. Jay Leno said it best when he said,
if this had Porsche written on it, it would be $250,000. But because it's Honda, for some reason, they don't seem to get the respect that they deserve.
I've always loved the S600. I wish Honda would do more weird, funky stuff like they used to. If I hadn't bought this car, if somebody else bought it, it probably would have become a parts car. It didn't have the engine, the rear end was fucked up, and the body had lots of dents and poor repairs. It did have all the chrome and windshield, so likely somebody would have pieced together a car using this one and at least one other one. You have to piece together multiple cars to make one restored car, so restoring reduces the number of cars, especially the kind of anal retentive, exact, new old stock, period correct restorations that some people do. The Jaguar is a different story. It was all there. I could have restored this entirely. There were only a couple of parts missing. I removed lots of parts, like the drivetrain. And guess what? The drivetrain went to a guy who was restoring a Mark V and needed a drivetrain. I took this car out of a building where it had been collecting cobwebs for almost 3 decades. In doing so, I helped another person with his restoration, and I get to do my custom-flavored Mark V. But here's the thing about the Mark V. Much like the S600 10 years ago, very few people really care about this car outside of the people who own one. It wasn't even really appreciated in its time. It was largely overshadowed by the XK120, which is frankly a much better car. It looks better and has a far better engine. In fact, it was the fastest production car in the world when it came out. The Mark V was the Daniel Baldwin of the Jaguar family, and nobody cares about Daniel Baldwin until you start cutting him up with a Sawzall and installing a Tesla powertrain. And then it's all, oh my god, you're ruining Daniel Baldwin. The whole time, Daniel Baldwin has been a perfectly fine actor, but nobody talks about him. But now, here we are, talking about him. Because of my ruining a car, 100,000 YouTube viewers can appreciate it in a different way, but I'm guessing most of these people didn't know much about the Mark V, or maybe even that it existed. In the same way that nobody watching this video even knew there was a Daniel Baldwin until just moments ago. I'm not trying to take credit for bringing global awareness to these vehicles, but I have countless times had people walk up to my Honda, ask me what it was, and later walk away with an appreciation of a car they didn't know existed. I think there's value in that. Value for the greater car culture. There are a lot of people who appreciate the Mark V and have appreciated it since long before I got my grubby hands on one. I've talked to several of them, and so far, they all think what I'm doing is pretty cool. Side note, I have received some criticism about my pronunciation of Jaguar. I realize that when I say it, it sort of sounds like the words just falling out of my mouth. Jaguar. I'm told the proper pronunciation is Jaguar. Presumably the R at the end is silent, since that's a thing in British English, at least in the part of the country where the company is headquartered. But then am I supposed to drop the R when I say Mark V? The Mach 5? That's a thing. That's already a thing. The Jaguar Mach 5? It sounds better when the Brits say it, I'll admit, but I'm not a Brit. There are differences in languages. They have crisps, we have chips, we have vitamins, they have vitamins. What they call a lorry, we call a mid-size pickup truck. In any case, while this may be a Jaguar, this is a Jaguar. You can tell because the steering wheel is on the left side. They did make a decent chunk of these in left-hand drive, which brings me back to my original point. There are a lot of these cars. Jaguar made over 10,000 Mark Vs and Honda made over 13,000 S600s. There are far fewer now, but there are still a lot. If there were only 5 S600s left, I wouldn't be hacking one up and shoving a motorcycle engine in it. I mean, I might be, but I would be more understanding when people got upset. But if there are hundreds or thousands of them, I don't really care what you think I should do with mine. And here's the real kicker. I think different is good. I think it's better, in fact. I wish there were more people doing weird, different stuff to cars. Yeah, this is weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But if I were at a car show, I would walk past a dozen Ferraris and McLarens to talk to this guy, because I guarantee it will be an interesting conversation. And you know what? I think most people feel the same way. And I think that because when I take my Honda to a car meet, people do the same thing. They'll walk past $6 million worth of cars to look at my rusty old Honda. And I think that's awesome, partly because I built it, but also because it shows me that most people really do appreciate the weird stuff, the modified stuff, the ruined stuff. I appreciate the kind of people who restore cars and take them to things like the Concours d'Elegance. But frankly, I'd rather look at the cars at the Gambler 500. I want to see the ruined cars. Those are my people. And that pretty much sums it up. I'm sure this doesn't change anyone's mind, but that's fine. Good, in fact. It's good to have different opinions, just like it's good to have different cars. And now we can move on to new comments like enough with the commentary and get back to building cars and you're ruining this channel. It used to be that you had to impress people to get people to watch your show. Now you just have to impress the algorithm. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. All hail the algorithm.